Go live. All right, all right. It looks like we are live. Hey, y'all. Hey, it's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you. I want to welcome you today. Hey, I want to make sure before I get into the lesson today, I want to make sure y'all can hear me. Drop me some likes, some love, some hearts, or even some angry faces if you saw what the title of today's broadcast is today. We are going to be talking about identity theft and how you could go into the hospital with one thing and come home with a real bad case of identity theft. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And then we're going to roll into our success strategies. Our success strategies tonight is number 7, suffer in silence. Suffer in silence. When have you known JJ Conway to be silent about anything regarding injustice? Well, we're going to talk about it today with our principle number 7. But first, let's talk about this identity theft. Oh my goodness, y'all, I had a prop and I forgot to bring it in here. Just give me a minute. Just give me a second. Let me see if I can play you something real quick. I'm gonna play you. That's so bad. I'm gonna play you my podcast intro. I'm gonna run and grab the prop. I'll be right back.
Hey, y'all. Hey, it's JJ Conway. Welcome to Building Wealth Together, where our goal is to help you walk in abundance and leave a legacy. It's Wealth Building Wednesday, where we answer your money questions with style and grace. To ask your question, go to buildingwealthtogether.com and click Ask JJ or leave a voicemail at 1-833-4-ASK-JJC. Normally, we'd answer questions, but today we've got some wealth building teaching instead.
I almost made it. Well, it's not Wealth Building Wednesday, but I'll tell you what, today what I'm going to talk to you about is going to help you preserve your wealth when we talk about this stuff in the with the hospital stay. And then we're going to talk about success strategy to help you build more wealth. Okay, so let's talk about this hospital stay. First of all, let me set up what happened that caused me. Let me set up what happened that caused me to go in the hospital in the first place. We have our spring break trip. It is the first time that my husband has the week off at the same time that I have John Maxwell, which is always in Orlando. So what do? Well, we take the whole family down to Orlando. My oldest has come with me to the John Maxwell conference before, but nobody else has. And we build a whole family trip around the John Maxwell conference in Orlando, including my Women's Wealth Legacy workshop, which we're going to start doing more regularly. Let me adjust this because I feel like I'm on an unnatural angle. Okay, sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay, so anyway, so we go down there. The boys and the family, they go to Disney, they go to Universal, they go to Legoland. They have a fabulous time. And the conference is over. The Women's Wealth Legacy Night is over. The last night of the John Maxwell Conference. And now it's time for Mama to do what Mama wants to do, which is dip her toes in that sandy beach and water. And so we're driving up to Destin. We are, no kidding, y'all, we are 12 minutes away from the beach. And we get rear-ended by a young lady who tells the cops, and I'm thankful that she was honest because her mom tried to make her change the story. You know what? I feel bad for this girl, but I hope the Lord bless her for her honesty. She was basically looking down at her phone. The light turned green. The traffic on either side of us went. We started to go and saw that our traffic wasn't going. So we slammed on our brakes and she didn't slam on her brakes because, as she told the cop, she was looking down at her phone. And so, several of you know that one of the things that ended my military career was a really bad car accident almost 6 years ago. And for me, I'm that annoying person. If you ever wonder when you see or hear somebody who honks at the people behind them when they're coming up too fast, or honks at the people behind them when they're looking down, you would be shocked, y'all, at how many people approach you at the stoplight looking down, stop their car looking down, and never look back up. You would also be amazed at how many people get ready to go at the stoplight and don't look up. And yes, I'm that annoying, embarrassing person that will honk my horn. Okay. But in this case, I was drowsy. I was not driving. This young lady hits us. And we think, okay, well, this is not as bad as the last one, so we're going to go along our way. We try to go to the beach, but all I could do, y'all, all I could do was cry. And because I was just like, this ruined our trip. We were going to go to the beach. We were going to stay the night at Destin. We were going to go to New Orleans the next day. I was going to get me some beignets, y'all, from Cafe Du Monde. And we were going to look at other sightseeing opportunities based on how we were just going to go with the flow. That's how we do a lot of our trips. We have a foundational, scheduled, structured part. And then the rest of the trip, we just go with the flow. And I was really looking forward to going with the flow after 4 days of helping host and work the John Maxwell Conference. I mean, it's a blessing to me too, don't get me wrong. But as an executive director and a team ambassador, once I get poured into on day one, the next 3 days are me working, right? So anyhow, fast forward to last Wednesday. So that was Thursday. That was Thursday as we were driving to Destin. A week later, I'm still nauseous. I'm still dizzy. I still can't eat. And look, y'all can look at me and tell that I like to eat, right? And if you're listening to this as part of the Building Wealth Together podcast, I'm going to suggest two things. One, go to my YouTube channel, JJ Knows the Way, and go ahead and watch the video because I'm going to be talking and I think I'm fun to watch. That didn't come out right. But two, join us live Thursday nights because most of the podcast content is actually recorded live Thursday nights. And then we split it out into Wealth Building Wednesday from the fireside chats on the first Thursday. And we also split it out into the Mindset Mondays and things like that. So join us Thursday night, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. But anywho, so we get to this Wednesday and I'm still nauseous and I'm still not eating and I've already lost like 6 pounds. And come to think of it, it's, being sick is not a bad weight loss strategy, but it's not the way and reason you want to lose weight. And so I called the doctor and the doctor's like, you need to go to the emergency room. Now, the whole saga of I can't get to an emergency room to take my insurance in rural Texas, that redonkulousness, we will cover that in a separate time and place on the podcast. But what I want to talk about today is we finally made the decision for me to go to the VA hospital in Dallas. Yes, we drove 2 hours to get me into the emergency room because somebody already emptied their $40,000 savings account when they had a bad car accident and had good health care, but it didn't pay for all the expenses. And we filed a lawsuit, but you can't squeeze blood from the turnip. And if that family had no money and their insurance company is cheap, there's only so much you can do. So anyhow, I wasn't trying to go through all that again. I still haven't recovered financially from that other accident 6 years ago. And so I was like, okay, we're not going to do that again. I don't feel like I've got loss of life or limb. I go to the VA hospital. And I'm tempted to, like many of us do. You see this all the time. Somebody posts a picture of them with their little wristband from the hospital in the hospital, and they're like, well, or they just post a picture of their wristband and they're like, well, somebody's back in the hospital or somebody's got this issue or y'all pray for me or something to that effect. You've seen those posts, and if you've seen those posts, drop it in the comments because I want to make sure A, y'all can hear me, and B, I want to make sure that y'all know what I'm talking about today. I mean, because if I'm the only one that ever seen those posts, well, then maybe it doesn't matter. But I get ready to take, after I get home, not in the event, because while I was there, y'all, I was so woozy. I was so in and out of it. They had to put all this IV and everything in it. And one of the things the doctor said is, part of how you feel so bad is because you haven't been eating. And I was like, well, some people would say I probably need to eat a lot less than I do, but I was eating what I could stomach. My husband made me fish. I couldn't eat it. We had this, we had that. I would put it up to my mouth and my whole system would just reject it. And then I was having all kinds of other issues when I tried to eat because some of the medicines that I was taking require food. So anyhow, but they put all that IV in me and they pumped me full of meds and I got to feeling better. And by the time I got home, I was like, I'm going to post about this. And then I looked down, which you're not seeing right now. I'm going to cover up some of the stuff. I blanked it out with marker, but I'll explain why in just a second, why I'm not showing everything. Actually, we're so far enough back, I can't. See how I blanked out most of that? I looked at my little band. First thing I noticed on my little band, there's a little flappy that has my entire social security number. And then on this little band is another spot that has my date of birth. And on this little band, there's a barcode with all of my information which you might think is proprietary, but codes are barcodes. And so even though it's a hospital setting, there's going to be someone else that can figure it out. And then I thought to myself, well, gee, I'll just do what I did. I'm going to hold this far back so it's low resolution. I'll just do what I did. I'll blank it out with a marker. Y'all, they have technology that can detect the subtle differences and shifts in the marker. And even if you think you're doing a really good job of blacking that out, unless you're using redacting software or something like that, there is a very high chance that anything you blank out with a marker in today's day and age is going to be readable and identifiable by those who are trying to read and identify your personal information. Why would somebody want to read and identify your personal information? Because everything stored on this little wristband from the hospital would allow somebody, it's got my address, it's got my phone, not my phone number, it's got my, in the barcode, it's got my address, it's got my date of birth, it's got my social security number printed right out there on the thing. Somebody could take the information on the other side of this and they could steal my identity. They could open up, well, they can't open up credit in my name because my credit's frozen. But you know what? There's hackers are always coming up with new things. Okay. So I want you to be very, very mindful of the fact that not only are things changing and some of the things we used to do, we have to be more careful now with regards to identity theft and stuff like that. But keep that in mind, not just for the overall big picture. Okay. Now we're not just talking about a phishing phone call or a text where somebody says, hey, you have these charges, please call us to fix it, and it's actually spam. Okay. Those things are very much a big issue. And next time that I talk about scams, I'm going to go through the Clark Howard article that just came out about the top scams, the top financial scams of 2022. And one of the top financial scams is getting people to give you their personal private information that can then be used to steal their identity. And so that's like the number one scam from 2022. We're going to talk about, I think he has 7 of them listed. We're going to talk about all of them. Well, posting things like this unawares of what's printed on it or what is stored in the barcodes and things that are on there could be opening yourself up to extreme risk of identity theft. So what do you want to do? Well, I'm not saying don't post when you're talking about going into the emergency room. But perhaps when you take your picture, now that you've heard what I've said, take a look at that picture and use the software built into your phone to redact out the private information. You can blur it out, you can black it out, you can do all those kinds of things with today's phones. All right. So that's my public service announcement for the day. Please be aware that you might go into the hospital and come out with something more than what you came for. And I'm not just talking about another sickness. I'm talking about identity theft. We've got to work hard to protect our identity theft in a rapidly evolving world where there are electronic hacker and identity theft threats all over the world. It's one of the easiest scams in the world to get you to give your information, to get you to post your information. Okay. And so we have to watch out for that, especially when the world is hurting the way it is. People are hurting. Economies are failing. People are going to do anything they can to get a quick buck. And in my opinion, as much as I'm thankful for some of the changes we've had in our culture that allow me to have the level of success that I have today, I can't help but acknowledge that there are a lot of people who do not hold up to the old-fashioned values of integrity and morality. And if they can make a quick buck without being caught, they're going to do so. Don't let it be at your expense. All right. All right. So that was our discussion on how you could go into the hospital with one thing and then come out with identity theft. Right. But now what I want to do is I want to switch gears. So if you're just joining us, I want to say hello. Hello, hello, hello. I'm JJ Conway, back with another time-tested success strategy for entrepreneurs, business leaders, speakers, and even moms. Okay. And so if you're new to me and in my body of work, first, I want to thank you for being here today. Your time is your most precious resource, and I'm honored and humbled that you're going to spend it with me and my tribe. Now, make sure if you like what you hear tonight that you go out to buildingwealthtogether.com so you can get the rest of the series. All right. Because I'm not broadcasting the rest of the series. What we're really doing is just broadcasting a couple of them that you may not have heard of. Okay. And as And as we cover these time-tested success strategies, remember, we're looking at them from two perspectives, okay? One, we're looking at it from what's the principle? How is that principle applied and how is it lived through? Okay. And I'm going to give some examples of how this principle served me and how how it serves successful people that I've observed. Okay. That's the first lens. That's the first way we're looking at it. The first way we're looking at it. Okay. The second lens through which we want to look at this is what is the thinking, the level of awareness that one has to grow in order to live it out. And I think it's really good, as we look at the 7 levels of character and how we get the ego out of the way so that we can live the principle of the best idea wins. That was our last one. I mean, you would never think that getting the ego and the challenges of being able to overcome the ego really allow us to live that principle. But here's the thing: if we don't get our ego out of the way, we can't uphold to the best idea wins. And there's a lot of things that we miss out on in life. See, we think that succeeding in life is grab, and holding tight to everything we have. But when we're holding tight to everything we have, we don't have open arms to receive more. And so I want you to be able to receive more. I want you to be able to walk in abundance. I want you to be able to accomplish things that you might never, ever have been able to accomplish on your own power. And the way to do that is with open arms, with an abundance mindset, and being open and welcome to the fact that some of the things that we're going to accomplish, they're not put in our hand to own. It's put in our hand to build relationships with the people who have it. And then they can come and make the changes, and they can come and fund the programs, and they can come in and open up the doors. Oh, y'all. If we don't get that, if we think we're right about everything and we keep doing what we're doing, then eventually we feel like we don't have any other options. And when you feel like you don't have any other options, you really can't see them because, come on, we're convinced we're right? But if we can free ourselves from all of that, then now we are open up to the limitless possibilities. And as somebody who used to pride now, okay, when I was 22, y'all, I was just the smartest, most perfect person in the whole wide world. I knew everything, and I was, called to the ministry, and I was just super devout and super perfect. And I mean, everybody in the world just needed to be like me, right? And one hallmark of maturity is as I've gotten older, as I've gotten more mature, as I've gotten a few experience, as I've gotten a few battle scars, I have come to know that I don't know everything. And I've come to know that I am very, very imperfect. And I have come to know that I can do a lot more. I can do a lot more when I allow everybody else, to speak their part and to have their piece. And so this one that we're going to be talking about today is really going to be talking about how we can how do I want to say it? We want to stem the tide of our opinions and our struggles and our disappointments for keeping the rest of our team from succeeding. Okay, so I'm calling tonight's principle suffer in silence. Okay, and so this is what we think is, as the entrepreneur, as the business leader, as the family leader, right? I don't subscribe to this thing that my kids are my friends. My kids are not my friends. They are my children, right? And when it's the same principle when you're a business leader. See, we have all this collaborative environments, and we have all this cooperative environments. And I did just tell everybody we need to get our ego out of the way. Like I just said that 3 minutes ago, right? At the same time, though, as the leader, it's our job to inspire and to elevate and to encourage. And so nobody on our team really should know our sacrifices. I mean, and look, as an entrepreneur, let's face it, we're going to make all kinds of sacrifices. You're going to have to make all kinds of sacrifices, whether it's entrepreneurship, success at your job, success in your families. We got to make all kinds of commitments that are so much greater than everybody else on the team, everybody else in the organization, and even greater than the sacrifices we're asking everybody else to make. I mean, that's part of the deal. Now, I would hope that today we can all agree that the most effective teams are the ones where the leader is willing to roll up their sleeves and get in the trenches and do everything that they're asking their teams to do. Okay, that's the foundation. But see, we're not here just to be average. Nobody comes onto this channel just to be average. We come because we want to elevate. We come because we want to be empowered. We come because we've got big dreams, big goals, and we are going to be called to do great things. And in order for us to do great things, we have to become great ourselves. And so those things of, okay, we're just gonna do, the standard leadership, that's the bottom floor. Okay, the mentors that helped me put together this program, Paul and Roddy, they tell a story about when they came back from Israel, right as COVID was ramping up. And I remember this trip because John Maxwell had taken a group of John Maxwell faculty and leaders, and they all went to Israel. And as COVID was ramping up, I was actually praying for them because I was worried they were not going to come back. Like, I was worried the country was going to lock down. They were all going to be stuck in Israel, right? And so, they told everybody, so they get back, and now COVID's ramping up. And guess what? Nobody in that space knew how to do this business uh, without being face to face, because a huge amount of the energy is face to face. Now, I'm not going to say nobody. I'm sure there are a couple people who knew how, because they're the ones that taught the rest of us, and we all learned it real quick, right? Like today, we're so used to this style of format of education and connection. But they didn't know what things were going to look like. Nobody knew what the landscape was going to look like. Nobody knew how it was going to play out. And so what they did was they told everybody on their team, they said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to cover you. We don't want you to worry about it financially. You're covered for the year. No matter what happens, we've got you covered for a year. Stay creative. We don't need you to worry about money. We just need you focused on being creative and taking this business to the next level. And then they all left. And then Paul says he looked at Roddy and said, well, now what are we going to do? We don't have any money. How are we going to live? The team didn't need to know what they were going to do for themselves, what they were going to do financially. The team didn't need to know the sacrifices they were going to have to make in order to make that happen. That's not theirs to know. That's not their burden to carry, right? And it's the same for me. Like, we stopped selling for about 6 months, and I kept paying people out of my pocket. Now, they know it now if they're listening to this lesson, and they know it if they heard me teach this a year ago, 2 years ago, when we did it as part of Countdown to Your Best Year Ever. But otherwise, they'll never know. And we're making good money now, right? We pulled through it, and we pivoted, and we did all the things, all the cliches, right? In the pandemic, I had my highest grossing month to date. But we had to get there. And we weren't going to get there if I threw my burden of leadership on everybody else. So remember, last time, or the last lesson, those of you who were part of the last lesson, it wasn't last time chronologically. I think it was actually maybe a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, when we talked about the burden of leadership and entrepreneurship and the consequences. I'm telling you today, don't burden people with things that aren't their burden. Seek counsel for your own issues. Get connected for your, personal or professional mentors. Get connected for those things outside of your team. And keep those things private. See, we think because our culture right now, everybody's all about vulnerability and authenticity. And I want you to be vulnerable. And I want you to be authentic. I don't want you to come in here front, because we can see right through it. But the truth is when you're here and when your team hears about your fears or your struggles, they themselves become paralyzed. And they begin to wonder about their future based on your ability to keep your own stuff in order. You got to project some confidence. I'm not saying lie about that. I'm saying put a team in place around you. Put a support network around you of people that you can lean on in those moments so that you can authentically project confidence. As the leader, you are going to deal with any worthy challenge that your business faces, any worthy challenge that your church faces, any worthy challenge that your family faces, any worthy challenge that makes it to your desk. And there's all kinds of these little challenges, financial challenges, vendor challenges, all these different little things. But when and you can empower your people to handle that. But when the big one comes, it's on your desk. There's all kinds of little staffing challenges that come up and personality things that come up in an organization. But when it's a big one, it lands on your desk. When we've got a problem with a contractor or a vendor, I mean, come on, there's always hiccups, there's always bumps and bruises, especially when you're doing just things through distributed ops, right? And if you're an entrepreneur and you've truly empowered your people, you don't hear about the little things. But when it's a big one, it's on your desk. And if there's a government problem or whatever it is, a zoning or code violation, whatever it is, if it's a serious one, it's supposed to end up on your desk. You're supposed to get those problems. You name it, you get it. But there's a huge difference in working through a problem with your team, and hear this now, complaining about your problems. Nobody likes a complainer. Complaining sucks the life out of people. It robs people of their motivation, their inspiration, and their creativity. It's toxic soil. And we teach in our Real Success Mentoring program that nothing grows in toxic soil. So when we begin to sound off and complain about things, it's a very slippery slope to go from complaining and then blaming. And I tell you, complaining will ultimately lead to blaming. And when we begin to complain about things, then we start to blame other people. And the minute we start playing the blame game, now it's another slippery slope to us not accepting responsibility for ourselves and our role in the problem. And we talked about this in the lesson about decision making, right? You're the decision maker, and you got to be the one to decide and solve the problem before it really festers out of control. And it doesn't mean you have to go it alone, but you do have to be very careful that you don't put it on the back of your team. And you don't start griping and complaining. See, there's a difference between going it alone and sharing. Sharing what's the team's responsibility and ultimately your responsibility, right? Because nobody really wants to hear the boss complain either. And here's something that I learned as a military leader, because I used to complain to my team all the time. I used to complain to my family all the time. As an entrepreneur, I used to complain to my vendors and my assistants all the time. And then I wondered why everything was such a mess. Guess what you attract into your life when you have complaining, blaming, and griping all the time? Guess what you attract into your life? Let me tell you what you don't attract into your life. You don't attract into your life people with the positive energy that you need to take your life, your business, and your dream to the next level. These principles that I'm sharing, these strategies, these are some of the things that I have failed at miserably. And so the reason why I know these things so well is because I've done it. I've sat in the mirror for hours, and this was me. I would complain about the fairness of things. I would complain about these people got this promotion and this objection and this contract, and I didn't get this. And then when I had my own business, I complained about I'm making sure everybody else gets paid, but I'm not getting a cut of my own business, and I worked too hard to be this broke. Any true entrepreneur knows that the top right hand drawer is where you keep your paycheck, right? Everybody else gets paid and you don't get paid. Your check stays there for a week, a month, a year. Some of y'all have businesses you have never taken a paycheck. We need to talk about that in a separate session, because I really like the principles behind profit first, which means you need to take your profit out first. And if your business can't support the profit, then you need to rework your business until it can. All right. That's a whole separate class. And if you want to talk to me more about that offline, let's talk about that offline. Okay. But we complain about things. We complain about working on the weekends, complain that we're the one that's to work at Christmas. I mean, when I started to rise up in the military, I discovered a very curious thing. Guess who's working over Christmas and Thanksgiving? The bosses, if they're good bosses. I've structured my business that, I'm not asking people to work on holidays that I consider sacred, but we have people all over the world, and sometimes they have something that I don't value, and sometimes I have something they don't value. And so what I had to learn is there's really no such thing as fairness. There really isn't. We have to get over trying to be so fair. Every time we're complaining, and I'm going to come back to the fairness thing in a second, but every time when I'm complaining, if I would just take a few minutes and really wrote down what I'm complaining about, I could turn that complaint into a request. And if I really looked if I really looked objectively, if I took my ego out of the way, I could find that there's a request being made. And it's so powerful for you to understand this. I hope if you're taking notes that you will write this down, okay? In every complaint, there is a request. Let me say that again. In every complaint, there is a request. And if I can reduce my complaint to a request, if I could transmute my complaint energy into a request energy, well, then I could deal with what the request is. And guess what? We're smart problem solving kind of people. Then we can solve it. I could solve it and learn and grow from it. See, happy customers don't make you better at what you're doing. It's the unhappy customers that make you get better. I'm going to say that again because I think that's powerful. You might need to write that one down or drop it in the chat for me. Happy customers don't help you get better at your service or product. It's the unhappy customers. That's where you learn and grow. My last speaking engagement, one of the speakers must have sent me 20 plus clarifying messages on how she was going to get paid and how to log in and do all the stuff. And those of you who've been with me for years know I move at the speed of light, right? Like I'm trying to get stuff done. I'm trying to get it done quick. And I honestly don't keep a lot of people on my team who need a ton of hand holding. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with being in an organization that takes a slower pace, but that's just not a fit for what we're trying to do here, right? And we'll talk more about that in the next lesson. But this person was apologizing and she's like, well, I'm really sorry, but I don't understand how to do this. And I'm really sorry, but I don't see how to upload my video there. And I actually thanked her because she was helping me get better. She was helping me get clearer. She was helping me to see where my rush mentality was introducing errors into what's normally a smooth process. And that's true for any business, any service, everywhere. Behind every complaint is a request. And what we have to do as entrepreneurs is we have to uncover the request. We have to get our ego out of the way so we can look objectively at the complaint and then solve the problem behind it. And in our own life, if we will do that in our own life, we will find that we won't have to vent so much to our teams and we'll be able to project more confidence to our teams. So as the business leader, we have to truly define what's in the request for that complaint, okay? And so when you can do this for yourself, you can get really good at being able to do it for other people. So that when your team members come in with a list of complaints and you can try and listen beyond the complaint. In other words, you can listen for what is the request behind that complaint. You hear the complaint with your ears, but listen to the complaint with your emotional mind, your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is your processor. And so we're hearing with our ears, but we're listening with our emotions. We really become emotionally involved in what they're saying, okay? We get engaged with it. We don't let it come in and just try to push it out. We listen to and hold it. And how can I become emotionally involved in it to the degree that I can solve this as a problem? What's the request here? What is truly the request? And here's what I found. And there's a couple things. Here's what I found. If you can take a complaint and turn it into a request so that when the employee complains and you begin to turn it into a request, here's the first thing you'll find. You'll find what their biggest fear is. You'll find what it is that they're afraid of. Because most people, when they're complaining about something, truly the request is they've got a fear. They've got some uncertainty. The second thing that you're going to find is you're going to find a way to connect with them. You're going to find a pathway. You're going to find a pathway to connect with them in ways that you weren't able to connect with them before. Oh, I love this. I love this. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for commenting. You're going to find a pathway to being better able to connect with your customers than you ever were before, even with your team members, even with your family. So when they present you a complaint, you can say, Jim or Mary, I hear the complaint. Well, let me just ask you, are you requesting this? Are you unsure about something? Are you nervous about something? Are you fearful about something? And when you can do that, you can connect with them in a completely different way. You'll find new solutions. And I'll tell you, as someone who served in the Air Force as a scientist and really wasn't good at people, I chose a technical career field for a reason, right? I was good with beeps and squeaks and lines and figures and isotopes and not people, not squishy people emotions. So for me, I had to look at some of these things that we're talking about. I had to, no kidding, look at them as a checklist to add into my style of leadership, as a checklist to add into my interaction of people. Okay, here's the complaint. Are they fearful of something? Are they nervous about something? Are they unsure about something? And how can I ask them in a way that doesn't activate their ego and push them away, but allows them to come closer to me? Whew, yeah. All right. The third thing you'll find, if you can take a complaint and turn it into a request, you'll find new solutions. You'll find new resources and you'll find new creative ideas that you never even thought of. It will force you, if you properly harness it, to move forward in clarity of procedure or quality. See, usually when someone comes in and complains, when we hear the complaint, the first thing we'll do, if we're honest with ourselves, is we'll take inventory of the person and say, well, is that just JJ being JJ? And we kind of dismiss it, don't we? But if we can take it as a request, then all of a sudden we're like, maybe there's something here. Let me look at it from a different perspective. So when it's a complaint, we personalize it, we push back, and it's human nature, right? Because I mean, also, if somebody's complaining, then what they're basically saying is something we did wasn't right. And come on, in our culture, nobody wants to be wrong. That's why we don't tell you to do something. We invite you. We don't tell you it's time to change your mindset and stop doing the same thing you've always been doing and expected a different result. We invite you to come in and learn how to do this and do this and do this and do this. And we invite you to come in and be the hero of your own story. Because in our culture, we don't ever want to be wrong. We don't ever want, let me rephrase that. We know we're wrong sometimes. We don't want somebody else to tell us that we're wrong, okay? We make it personal. But if it's a request, then all of a sudden, hold it. What triggers in me is the emotion of empathy, compassion, and how can I solve this problem? I'll solve this problem. And what we begin to do is we begin to think of new solutions, new resources, and we become aware of new ideas. The fourth thing you'll find, if you can reframe complaints as requests, is that we learn to better communicate. You learn to better communicate because chances are, whatever the complaint is about, we've probably communicated some kind of answer to it anyways, but it just didn't land. In other words, they didn't catch what we were laying down in our communication. And one of the things we may learn is we may learn how people communicate. People communicate in many different ways. And again, one of the reasons why so many of us entrepreneurs struggled in school could be our style of learning. Like if you're a kinetic learner, like my son, you're fidgeting and you're driving people around you nuts. You're a kinetic learner. And so the teachers would say, stop doing this and stop doing that. And when you would stop, what they didn't realize is when you stopped learning, you stopped doing those things. That's when you stopped learning, because you being a kinetic learner, that was helping anchor it in your mind. And it's the same when you're communicating to your team. If you can take their complaint and turn it into a request, now you'll be able to better learn to communicate with them in a completely different way. It's worth keeping in mind that you should be grateful for the complainers, because for every one person that complains, another 10 or 20 just go on about their way and don't come back. And you never even hear from them. You're losing them without even realizing it. And it may be the people that help that the people that complain are the ones that can help you change your service so that you can keep the ones that are just silently leaving. So one of the things that I've learned to do when I complain, for example, you might have a restaurant that you go to all the time, right? And maybe you're friends with the owner and chef. And if something's not right, it would be easy for you to not say anything, right? But the friend, the owner and chef, can't fix when he or she doesn't know is broken. So give them the opportunity to fix it. And you can start the conversation by saying something non-confrontational like, look, I care so much about this place because I know you own it, but it's really mine. I care so much because I need you to stay in business. And I care so much about your team, and I know how much you care about every single detail. And I know it's impossible for you to watch everything. So I just wanted to share with you something that I observed. And then I always try to bring in some ideas like, okay, here's a couple things you might try to do. If you just had your hostess do this, I think it would probably mitigate that. Or if you did this, when I was coaching another restaurant, here's what I saw them do. Okay. Don't do what I did the first time I saw that one of my son's favorite businesses was failing. Like I was a newly minted John Maxwell coach, right? This was a couple years back. This is a couple years back. I was a newly minted John Maxwell coach. And oh yeah, this was like 7, 8 years ago. And I saw the signs, and my son's favorite businesses kept going out of business. And so we had this new pizza place that opened up on Airline Drive in Bossier City. And I was like, hey, I'd like to come in and give y'all some free training. And the manager's like, we don't need any free training. I'm like, you need some free training. You about to go out of business. Don't do that. And he was like, I don't know who you think you are, but we're doing just fine. I'm like, you're not doing just fine. I can tell you about to go out of business, and you're my son's favorite business. And he already lost the last 2 of his favorite businesses because they went out of business. I'm trying to keep you up. I'm trying to keep you afloat. Let me tell you how fast that man hung up on me. And you know what? In 2 weeks, they were out of business. So don't do that. All right. Don't ever feel bad. I mean, I don't want to say don't ever feel bad because I think healthy guilt is a good thing, right? It motivates us to do the right thing. But if you do something with positive intent and you're really trying to help, let go of some of those mistakes and just do like Maya Angelou said, do the best you can do. And when you know better, do better. And sometimes we don't know. And too many people are paralyzed because they don't know the best and the perfect response. And they don't know the best and the perfect way to do this or do that. And I believe that the way that the Lord has structured this universe is that it rewards action. And I may not be perfect, but I'm going to get a lot of stuff done in the time you're trying to perfect your craft, right? So I encourage everybody to go out there and make a mess. And but when it comes to these kinds of things, I would just suggest that it's important to give solutions and try to communicate how much we care. That we're not just being critical, that we're here for your success and trying to provide some sort of solution. And so when you look at it from a request perspective, you can communicate in a completely different way. All right, here's the last benefit we're going to talk about tonight of transmuting the energy of a complaint into a request, okay? And that is that you're going to find new opportunities. And what you're going to do is you're going to find opportunities to fix and repair. And this kind of goes along with the theme that we've already covered, but you're going to find opportunities either to fix and repair or improve and innovate or scrap and start again. And so whenever there's a complaint and you can boil it down to a request, you're going to look at the request and say, let me look at this request and let me look at what we're doing. Do we need to fix and repair something? Or do we need to improve or innovate a different strategy? Or maybe do we just need to scratch what we're doing and start all over again? And that's honestly where I am with Building Wealth Together. We have grown exponentially in the last 3 years since COVID took hold. I mean, how many of you remember, back in 2019 when my list was just 200 or 300 people, and I really literally could pray for everybody by name on Sunday. My Sunday daily thought was always something to the effect of my prayer for you is blah, 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 blah. And I meant it. And I could do that. Okay. Well, we've grown so much that it would take me all month and I still wouldn't finish praying for everybody on the list. And I wouldn't be able to cook dinner for my family either. Right. And so we've added different things and we've tried out different things. And now the team is getting over 5,000 emails a day for various things. And we're just trying and tweaking and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. And cobble. And when I found out that I had cobbled together so many things that I realized I can keep duct taping this thing together, or we can quit fixing and repairing and improve and innovate a different system. And so, some of you got like 20 emails from me at the same time last month trying to finalize our new system. And then it was like, okay, we're just starting over. And I, user error and a little bit of a learning curve. Sometimes you just need to do that. The people that love you, the people that appreciate you, the people that are being blessed by you, the people who are growing and profiting from what you are giving to them, they will stand by you. And if people fall away, well, then maybe they weren't the ones you needed around you anyway. Sometimes you have a week, sometimes you have a month, right? But I think when you can get beyond the emotion of a complaint and suffer in silence enough to get it into a request, I think you'll find new opportunities. Now, here's something that I know. Only good things can come from this when you shut off your own complaint button. See, when you shut off your own complaint button and when you learn to listen beyond the complaint and into the request, everything in your business and everyone in your business is better for it. Absolutely. So this idea of suffering in silence is really this idea of check yourself first. Check yourself first, but then listen to your own complaining and thinking into the business differently, listening to your team's complaining and transmuting those complaints into requests. And I think for yourself and your team, if you can transmute the complaints in your business from clients, from staff, from yourself into requests, it's completely different energy. Now you've gone from reactive, defensive energy to positive, creative energy. And you don't realize the position of influence that you're in within that kind of leadership role a lot of times. So I want you to just think about the hierarchy of an organization and the leaders and the people underneath them, all right? And so for each one, the company is represented by that person that they report to. It does not matter whether you're reporting to the CEO or one of the execs or whether you're an employee further down the chain, right? To you, the organization is represented by that next person above you. And you don't even see the organization itself very often because what you see is that person above you. And you've got this huge blind spot for everything else that could be going on in the company. Because to you, it's your relationship, it's the line manager, that's the person you interacted with. And so all of that is kind of hidden as people go up the chain. Okay. And so you're thinking about it from your own perspective. And so you hear people say, well, this company doesn't pay very well. Well, actually, maybe the company does pay very well. Some people, it just doesn't pay you very well. This company doesn't train people. Well, actually, someone might say this company spends a fortune on training. We just don't train you that much. Oh, y'all, I can tell that this is a word for somebody today. When we complain that the company's not looking well after its people, well, maybe the company is looking well after its people. Why? Why do you think this company doesn't treat people well? These people over here are getting treated well. How do you expect me to live on this paycheck? Okay, this is a big one. How do you expect you to live on this paycheck? Well, you know what? Sometimes they don't expect you to live on that paycheck, but that's the value you're providing. So it's all kind. It's all kind of an individualized experience for everyone. And I think for us, it's one of the hardest things to do is to take our complaints and transmute them into requests and then seek about solving the problem of the request. And I just want to thank you, whoever Creative Expressions and Gifts LLC is. I want to thank you for your kind comments and for your participation on here. I thank God for you too. It always encourages me to see these kind of comments coming through. So I want you to think about what I'm saying. Okay, we've kind of covered almost the 360 of suffering in silence. We've talked about being confident for your team. We've talked about building your own personal support system so that your team, your employees, your children don't become your vent friends. All right. We've talked about suffering in silence when the team brings complaints to you. We've talked about suffering in silence when the customers bring complaints to you. And all of these things are designed to transmute that defensive complaint energy into something that will be creative and problem solving and collaborative and open-minded and lead you forward. Okay. We have to understand that when people are complaining about a company, and we may have, oh yeah, we may have, when we became entrepreneurs, become entrepreneurs in a huff based on all these things that I was just giving examples of with our other company. But the problem is, you take the same energy that you had at that job and now you bring it into your entrepreneurship. You take the same energy that you had at this church and you bring it to that church. You know, many of you know that I'm in a ministry and I don't have a church here in Stephenville. We're seeking the Lord about whether or not to open one. We're serving wherever we can. And I teach Bible study at the college on Wednesday nights until this semester's over. And then we're going to go back to Tuesdays. But one of the things that I've seen is I've been to several churches in town who are looking for pastors. Like, I don't know if people are just getting burned out and quitting, or if people are getting higher pulpit opportunities, more lucrative pulpit opportunities. But people they come into town, they get their training wheels off, and then they go off to bigger ministries, right? And I've seen that happen with several churches. And I was in one church. And y'all, if you're in a church like this, I am not knocking it. I understand completely why some churches have this attitude, because there's so much bureaucracy and hypocrisy that goes on in big church organizations that I totally understand the value of. We're an independent church. But this church was like, well, we don't have bishops and we don't have apostles. We believe that the church is accountable to the local thing, and so we don't want to be a part of any organizational structure. We're going to do our own thing. True statement. Okay, absolutely true statement. The local congregation is definitely accountable to the pastor is accountable to the local congregation, and vice versa, right? But when you hear somebody say that, it makes you think, okay, y'all left in a huff from your other church and you started a new church and you thought you were going to solve all the problems from your old church. But guess what you did? You took yourself and all your problems and all your complaints with you. When you started your business, you took yourself and all your problems and all your complaints with you. And you took all those attitudes and you took all those chips on your shoulder. And now when someone brings a complaint, guess what you're doing? Okay. And so we have to understand that a lot of our experiences in the past with corporations, and the experience that others are having with us as an entrepreneur, as a family member, as an organizational leader, as a nonprofit, as a government employee, it's individualized for everyone. And John Maxwell said, people don't leave people, they leave bosses. So it's the same when you're talking to an audience with speaking. You're talking to an audience and you tend to think of this audience as a thing, but it's not. It's made up of individuals. And if you're going to connect to them and influence them, you connect with them one at a time. You connect with each individual. I'm going to give you one of the most important concepts that changed the trajectory of my military career. We gotta quit complaining. Oh, that's what I've been talking about all night, y'all. We've got to quit complaining. If you are in an organization and you are complaining about something, that is actually your opportunity to really step up. Instead of being the complainer, can you be the problem solver? That might be the opportunity for you to get your next pay raise, for you to get the next door open, for you to get on the boss's radar. As a follower, when you find something wrong, rather than complaining, it might be the best use of your time to solve it. I'm solving this problem. I'm going to fix this. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to look at the request within it. I'm going to solve the problem, and then I'm going to increase my value to the organization in so doing. The easiest time to stand out is when everyone else is fed up or everybody else is complaining. This company is rubbish, right? Then all you need to do is lift your head and you stand out, right? That alone will change a lot. Trying to be helpful to the organization. And again, I'm talking about organization because that's where many of us got our foundation of work and corporate experience. And then we took that foundation, whatever we had, into our own businesses, our ministries, our families. And if you had this experience of being the complainer, like I had an experience of being the complainer, you may not have realized you've brought that energy with you. Everyone has their own individualized experience. And it's really, really important because you've got this leader representing a huge organization, small organization, family, doesn't matter what the unit is. Okay. What matters is it's the relationship that's so key, and the relationship has so much influence. So this leader is influencing this person who may very well be a leader within the organization themselves, right? And they're influencing their team. And if they're not influencing their team, maybe they're influencing their customers. They're influencing everyone they're interacting with. Maybe it's shareholders, maybe it's suppliers, maybe it's their peers, maybe it's back to their boss, because we can influence up as well. And everyone we used to interact with within the organization may be the other members of your boss's peers or your boss's leadership, all these different ways that we can influence depending on how we feel about the organization. And how we feel about the organization is in big part represented by the person above us. So if they're saying things, if they're suffering, not in silence, but out loud, that influences us. It kind of radiates down. It's very difficult not to be influenced by that. And if you grew up in that kind of culture, you may have taken that complaining culture, not even realizing it, into your current ventures. And that influence radiates out. Sometimes we don't even realize it. There are times where I do things that I didn't even realize I picked up from the people that mentor me, or the people that like little mannerisms and little ways of interacting. And it's like, when I watch the video, I'm like, oh, I do that thing that so and so does. We're influencing people around us all the time. Let's make a choice to influence in a positive way instead of by default influencing in a negative way, especially as leaders. Ooh, y'all, this one bit me in the behind. We've got to watch our verbalization. And I resisted this because I thought I was towing the Air Force line. I was saying the right words, but my body language and my huffs and puffs were setting up discontent and complaining in my team. We're influencing the people around us in whatever way we are influenced. And most of the time it's negative. And it's so easy to do if we're not careful, if we're not intentional, if we're not designing our empowered life. A lot of times the people are working for us, they got all their dreams built on this thing not falling apart. And they may not plan on being with you forever, but for the season that they're with you, they need this thing to keep going. They need this train to keep running. They need that paycheck to keep coming. They need the opportunities to develop their portfolio to be there. And as a leader, you've got the dreams of your team because their dreams are tied to the organization's dream. Everyone doubts at times, okay? I mean, everyone doubts. And as a leader, yes, you're going to doubt, and sometimes every the people above them, and it doesn't stop with you, and it goes down throughout all your team and whatever, and potentially wherever, and it can demoralize you and demoralize them. That's why we had a concept in the military about chain of command and making sure that no matter how you felt about what the higher up said, those negative things, you are not to communicate them to your team, because it demoralizes them. And suddenly you feel like, well, I belong to something important anymore. And that is just the attitude of the person above you. It may not be the organization. An attitude makes such a difference. And I don't like to use the word poison, but it is kind of toxic because it radiates down like that. And it's toxic. So it doesn't kill you. It just makes you really sick. And you don't believe anymore. And now it's like, you can't be bothered. And what's it all for? Do I really want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for this? And then let me start looking for those things to reinforce that notion. And guess what? You see them everywhere. Oh, and then you start telling everybody you enjoy talking about how and everything has changed. And, because the person above you, all because the person above you couldn't suffer in silence. Stop and think about that for a second. How are warned by someone above us who couldn't suffer in silence or couldn't abide by sound leadership principles? And don't let it get even worse, like let them not be at cross purposes with you, and then you're trying to keep the peace and you're trying to suffer in silence, but then you think, oh well, you're not being integrous. If you think things are bad and you're not telling your team what things are really like, well then you're not being transparent and you're not being vulnerable and you're not being authentic. Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. And people will often say to me, "Well, man, it feels like things are falling apart." It's, oh, it's bad, it's bad. And I would agree, because you know what? I wanted to walk in integrity, but that wasn't appropriate as a leader. You can learn to maintain your integrity and still lead, even if you feel like the higher ups are not going to take care of you. Even if you feel like this, that, and the other, you can say something like, well, probably the best thing we can do is look at how the company's treated us in the past. Have you ever not got a pay raise? Well, we've always gotten a pay raise. Pay raise has always been fair, all things considered. There's always been opportunity. Have we got the biggest training budget out of any other? Yeah, we do. Or you think that you might think that this isn't sharing truth, but it's actually helpful for them because they still believe and they're doing their best, which is then in their best interest to be able to succeed if things really do fall apart. I mean, think about this for a second. If you start griping and grumbling because you see things in your leader above you that you don't like, and then your people stop performing because you verbalize the negative juju you're hearing from your boss, and things go south fast, guess who's hung out? People. So you got to find integrous ways to do no harm. And it's the same for a family. As a parent, even if you're like, it's falling apart, you don't want to share all your irrational fears with your kids. You want to be their rock. Personally, I find that's a whole lot easier to do when you're leaning upon the rock. And one more point on this, okay? And I love to celebrate people's successes. So this was another aspect of the concept suffer in silence that took me a while to really get. I think sometimes we need to celebrate in silence as well. Because if you get a really great bonus as the boss of the organization, and you're like, woohoo, running around saying best year ever, thank goodness, and everybody else only got a 2% pay raise or no bonuses this year, that's demoralizing. And I'm not saying it's not fair, but it's demoralizing. So don't share those kinds of things with the team. It doesn't help. Celebrate the team successes together. Absolutely. That's something to celebrate together. But don't get in front of your team and say, I know it's tough times, but I got 3 houses, 2 cars, and everything's going good in my life. So we're all okay. We're all okay. They may not be okay. Do y'all remember that show, The Office? Please don't be the boss that walks in and says, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is I got a promotion. Things are looking up for me. The bad news is they've asked me to get rid of half of you. That doesn't help everyone. And as the leader, as the business entrepreneur, you really have to think about what you say and how you say it. And I know it's the pot calling the kettle black, because we are both in this boat together, y'all. I am learning and seeking the Lord and how to better season my words with grace. But it's really about how we say what we say, how we position it. And when we say it, what we do really matters. See, a lot of times when entrepreneurial based companies start, they start at the kitchen table. It's like you and your buddy at a hotel having breakfast, right? Somebody's got an idea and it starts small. You bring a couple people in and everybody's friends, and you'll try to keep that same relationship. But you are the leader. And these relationships, they don't stay the same. They don't stay the same. So the next time that we look at success strategies, we're going to look at why relationships don't stay the same and why you can't treat everybody the same. So I hope that you've enjoyed tonight's talk. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Remember, it's not too late to catch up with these lessons. The entire 14-point course, you can get them at buildingwealthtogether.com. And I hope that you will join me next week for our Thursday night podcast, a Thursday night broadcast, because we will be doing your money questions. That's right. I will be answering your money questions. Well, I hope is with style and grace. And so every first Thursday is our fireside chat where I answer your money questions. Thank you for being here today. I really do appreciate you. Every first Thursday is our fireside chat where I answer your money questions. Every second Thursday is our 7-figure business building, where we look at an aspect of how you can create another stream of income to help you get to 7 figures and financial security. Every third Thursday is real estate, one of my favoriteest things in the world, because I feel like real estate levels the playing ground for many of us, who, regardless of gender, color, race, creed, any of those things, right? And then every fourth Thursday is our empowered entrepreneur. And this year we're looking at designing our empowered life, being intentional with who we are and whose we are, so that we can achieve all that is on our heart and all that we are called to do. Today's the fifth Thursday, and so that's kind of a wild card. It's just whatever I feel like teaching. And what we've been doing recently is going through these success strategies and really honing them down and getting them into your hearts and mind. And again, we take these lessons, we extract them out for the Building Wealth Together podcast. So I encourage you to tell your friends about the Building Wealth Together podcast, but I encourage you also, if you're listening to this as part of the podcast, go out to youtube.com. It's still at JJ Knows the Way. We are thinking about changing the handle. I know with almost 7,000 YouTube subscribers and almost 6,000 people in the list, I know that it's going to cause some rigmarole if I change all my handles, but I'm beginning to feel like it's time to mature and elevate and move in the direction that's more sustainable. And so we'll see how that goes. But for now, you can go out to buildingwealthtogether.com and click on podcast or YouTube. And you can also go to YouTube, youtube.com/C/JJ Knows the Way. That's all I have for you tonight. Y'all take care and be blessed. Oh, and thank you. Thank you for those. Hey, thank you for those of you who want to share this. Please share, like, subscribe. I'm supposed to say that like 20 times throughout this talk, and I keep forgetting. So I appreciate this. See, look, we're building wealth together. Y'all come into my life to remind me of the things that I need to take care of, and I hope that you found your time valuable. All right, this time I'm going for reals. Y'all take care and be blessed.